Hello, I'm Christine Pitawanich with your weekly recap. We'll be catching you up on some of the biggest stories of the week. That includes the latest in the legal battle to send National Guard troops to Portland. Plus, Oregon's only Republican member of Congress sends a message to his colleagues as negotiations to reopen the government stall. And a sneak peek at some major upgrades coming to Memorial Coliseum, the first in decades. But first, we begin with our top story this week, the impending court decision to determine whether President Trump can send National Guard troops to Portland. As of this recording, Friday afternoon, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals judges had not issued a ruling. Here's a brief overview of how we got here. President Trump tried to deploy 200 Oregon National Guard troops almost 2 weeks ago, meant to protect the ICE facility in South Portland from demonstrators. Local officials have said the administration is exaggerating its claims of violent protests. A Trump-appointed district court judge blocked the move. The administration then tried to send California and Texas troops. The judge eventually barred any state's National Guard troops from deploying to Oregon. The head of Oregon's National Guard told lawmakers troops could be trained in crowd control, but couldn't make arrests.
That Oregon National Guard men and women they serve two purposes: one, to defend America, and two, to protect Oregonians. And so by serving in this mission, they will be protecting any protesters at the ICE facility. That's my desire.
Everything we're doing is very lawful. What they're doing is not.
As you just heard, the president says everything the administration is doing is lawful. This is a fast developing story. You can find the latest updates on our website, kgw.com, or streaming on KGW+. Earlier this week, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem made a surprise visit to Portland to see conditions and tour the ICE facility. After she left, she threatened again to send more federal agents to Portland if the city does not meet her demands for safety and security.
Met with the governor, met with the mayor, met with the chief of police and the superintendent of the highway patrol. They are all lying and disingenuous and dishonest people. Because as soon as you leave the room, then they make the exact opposite response. So we're looking at new facilities to purchase. They're in Portland too, and we're going to double down. And I told them if they didn't meet our demands for safety and security on the streets and work with us, then we were going to bring in more federal law enforcement.
Now, Portland and state officials continue to push back on the Trump administration's claims about what's going on outside the ICE facility in Portland. And while demonstrations have appeared to remain largely peaceful, people living nearby say federal agents have increased their use of things like tear gas, pepper balls, and mace against protesters in recent weeks. And that's partially why Oregon lawmakers have sent a letter to top officials. They also want to know more about what's going on inside the facility concerning detainment and processing, as well as access to counsel in immigration hearings.
My view is this Trump unilateral action is an abuse of executive authority. He is clearly hoping that he can incite violence and undermine the constitutional balance of power between the federal government and our states.
As of Friday morning, Portland police say they've made a total of 47 arrests in the South Waterfront area since protests began there back in June. Well, social media is also playing a central role in the ICE building showdown in Portland, with feeds just filled with opposing views about whether to bring in the National Guard. Libby Dowsett sat down with an expert and talked about how to wade through and make sense of all the content.
You've seen the videos.
I love this, man. I love this energy.
The social media messages.
It's actually relatively quiet.
But how, in this age of AI, clickbait, and toxic politics, can we know what is really going on?
If it's really provocative or kind of outlandish, something that you're like, wow, this just feels a little weird, I would go and double check the source.
Dr. Ashley Haas, who teaches social media, marketing, and analytics at the University of Portland, recommends first doing some digging to understand the context of what's being shown or posted.
And it's okay to get things from multiple sources. So that's where I think that like triangulation, making sure, okay, I see that this is happening and going to the source is really important.
An example, a TikTok poster claims this Portland police liaison officer is standing up to ICE. You will be arrested. But a different post with a longer video clip appears to show the officer directing a citizen driver away from a closed area near the ICE building.
There are people occupying it. I would go and try and find, again, that like longer soundbite, because especially with social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it's smaller versions of media, right? It's only clips here and there.
Secondly, she says it's also important to consider the source of the post.
We hope to have peace and secure some partnerships.
While KGW was able to quickly question U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem when she visited Portland, only conservative social media representatives were invited to come along on her tour of the ICE facility, not mainstream media.
We're in these echo chambers where you're liking content and saying things that is primarily probably one of your political affiliations versus another.
Haas teaches her social media students to exercise critical thinking and ask open-ended questions to achieve a better understanding of what they're seeing online.
And they're good at discerning, especially AI. They've got the eye to see when things are like, yeah, that's not real.
She predicts new AI tools in the next 5 years will help pinpoint altered videos. In the meantime, she says the real spotlight needs to be on ethics when deciding what to post and share.
What impact am I having to the world and society? How am I making the space better?
Libby Dowsett, KGW News.
Now to some other headlines this week. A Vancouver teenager is charged with second-degree murder after authorities say she strangled a woman to death. Court documents say 17-year-old Karma Douglas got into a fight with Chantel Trotter inside Trotter's home early last Sunday morning. Here's more from Trotter's son.
She was a hard worker, a hard-headed person who put her best foot forward in every situation, always had a smile on her face, making sure that everybody around her was taken care of and happy.
We are identifying Douglas because she's being charged as an adult and because of the severity of the crime. Douglas was scheduled to be back in court Friday. A former Westland doctor was booked into the Clackamas County Jail Friday morning after a grand jury indicted him on 11 counts of sexual assault. Alma McCarty has the details on the accusations against the doctor and why attorneys are calling the indictment a major victory.
According to a letter obtained by KGW, a confidential grand jury convened last week and after a day and a half of testimony issued an indictment that includes 11 felony sexual assault charges against David Farley. This indictment marking the first criminal charges against Farley, a former doctor who ran a family medicine practice in West Lynn. In a civil suit, more than 170 women and girls have alleged sexual abuse by Farley, who abruptly retired in 2020. The Oregon Medical Board revoked his license a few months later for, quote, unprofessional and dishonorable conduct and gross repeated acts of negligence. We spoke with attorney Courtney Tom in May of this year after a hearing in the civil case.
The strong women and children that we represent, and it's been a very, extremely, brutally long road, but they remain committed not only for themselves, but for the many women and children that have yet to come forward.
Alleged victims have fought for years for accountability and justice. In 2022, a Clackamas grand jury declined to indict Farley on criminal charges. And in 2024, the DA sent a letter to Oregon's Attorney General asking the state's DOJ to take up the criminal investigation. Alma McCarty, KGW News.
It took dozens of firefighters to control massive flames at Pacific Coast Shredding in Vancouver Tuesday night. It burned into Wednesday morning and was out by Wednesday afternoon. The metal shredding operation is now back open at the Port of Vancouver. Metro Metals owns the plant and says a full safety and environmental assessment is underway.
The issue with metal scrap fire piles like this is just trying to get to the source while keeping everybody safe. Because it is a metal scrap fire, not just your ordinary components, we did request the hazmat team to come out here and help and give advice to help us extinguish this fire.
No one was hurt in that fire and the cause remains under investigation. The government shutdown has been in effect since the first of the month, and Oregon's only Republican member of Congress is calling for Democrats to end the government shutdown by agreeing to a temporary funding plan. Representative Cliff Bentz says there's no indication the shutdown will end anytime soon, with Democrats refusing to agree to a funding plan unless their health care demands are met. Now, Democrats say unless expiring health care tax credits are extended, many people could lose health insurance coverage or see their premiums become unaffordable. So for now, they're not budging.
And that's really sad because the consequences of the government shutdown are bad for everybody. And this could be easily ended if we had, I think we need about 5 or 6 more Democrat senators to vote for the clean CR. And then the government will reopen. People will get paid. The military will get paid. The air traffic controllers will get paid. TSA agents will get paid. And we can go ahead and talk about the issues that Democrats have in mind.
Bentz says Democrats should agree to the current funding proposal, which would last until November 21st. The city of Tigard now has a new mayor. It's Yi Kan-hu, who beat out fellow Tigard City Councilor Jeanette Shaw. He takes over the role after former Tigard Mayor Heidi Lube resigned last month following an investigation into her workplace conduct. In a statement, Hu said, quote, "As mayor, I am committed to restoring stability, strengthening trust, and making sure our local government reflects the teamwork and respect our residents deserve." Hu will serve through the end of 2026. Oregon State Representative Hua Win died Thursday morning after a battle with cancer. First elected in 2022 and re-elected last year, she represented parts of East Portland and Damascus. A former teacher and school board member, Win championed education equity and childcare access in Salem. In a statement, Oregon House Speaker Julie Fahey said Win was a fierce advocate and, quote, "Her legacy will live on in this chamber and in every classroom she fought so hard to support." Senate Republicans echoed that sentiment, saying, quote, "Her kindness and commitment to making a difference will be remembered by everyone who had the privilege of working with her." Win was just 41 years old. A well-known chef who worked in 2 of Portland's fine dining restaurants has died at the age of 43. Devin Haskins has more on how the loss of Justin Woodward is opening up conversations about addiction and sobriety.
Justin Woodward was a well-respected chef in his industry. From 2015 to 2019, he was nominated each year for a James Beard Award. Never winning, he still earned accolades from food critics. In a 2013 review, Portland Monthly's Karen Brooks called him the only Portland chef cooking Michelin-level food. Woodward worked at restaurants in New York, Europe, and Portland, where for nearly 15 years he served as executive chef at Castagna and then later at OK Omens in Southeast Portland. OK Omens posting on Instagram that Justin helped define the identity of each restaurant and served as a mentor to several chefs, saying, quote, "At his core, Justin loved the art of cooking and the act of feeding people. He was exacting, loyal, and endlessly creative, someone who gave his whole self to his craft." In his obituary, his family wrote, "Justin loved the outdoors and traveling the world and experiencing new places through cuisine and art." They said he died from liver failure due to alcoholism.
I'm sorry to your city for all those people who enjoyed his food and his restaurant.
Mickey Baxt is the co-founder and executive director of Ben's Friends. That's a national organization with the Portland chapter that helps those in the restaurant industry struggling with addiction to find sobriety. It's named after Ben Murray, a former chef that died by suicide surrounded by drugs and alcohol.
The restaurant hospitality industry has per capita one of the greatest percentages of substance abuse.
Baxt, 43 years sober himself, says the long hours, late nights, easy access to alcohol, and stress are some of the major factors.
Let's be honest. Working in a kitchen or working in a dining room, there's tremendous stress. So there's just so many factors.
Justin Woodward died October 2nd in San Diego. He was 43 years old. In Portland, Devin Haskins, KGW News.
Again, access to resources at 988. Okay, now we have a traffic alert for MAX riders. Starting this Sunday, TriMet will begin a 7-day MAX improvement project on the east side of the Willamette River. On Sunday, blue, green, and red line service will be disrupted. There will be shuttle buses, though, serving closed stations between the Rose Quarter and Gateway Transit Center. Then, next Monday through Saturday, the MAX red line will be down between Gateway and PDX. TriMet says riders should plan trips in advance with the expectation that they could be delayed up to 45 minutes.
Just being aware, especially if you're traveling to or from PDX, just know that the trips might take a little bit longer. If you're carrying a lot of luggage, there might be limited space on board the shuttle buses. You might have to wait for a second shuttle bus.
Regular service will resume next Sunday. And we got an early look this week at some renovations at Memorial Coliseum, the first major upgrade to the building since it opened back in 1960. Some of the features include new seats, refreshed colors, and new handrails.
A lot of them are fan-facing, and then some of them are back-of-house kind of mechanical systems and things that the building desperately needed. The seats and the changing of the sort of design and color scheme in the bowl is probably the most immediately striking thing, I think, for folks, and it's going to be really well received.
Of course, the Coliseum is home to the Portland Winterhawks and hosts numerous events throughout the year. Trailblazers fans who attended the team's first home game of the preseason Friday passed by some unique and brand new artwork. The Trailblazers say the theme of the murals here is Roots to Roses. The organization invited 7 artists to paint their interpretation of what roses meant to their roots. We caught up with 2 of the artists. One used bright colors to represent their Hispanic culture. Another artist used roses and sweetgrass as a nod to his Native American background.
And with the braid of sweetgrass in the back, sweetgrass is known as the braid of Mother Earth's hair, and it represents protection, strength, community bonding.
So it's showcasing like a bunch of roses made a part of different colors, as everybody are, and it's also showing 2 hummingbirds that they are kind of like some spiritual visitors for our cultures.
The Blazers will open the regular season on October 22nd against the Minnesota Timberwolves at Moda Center. And are you an In-N-Out fan? Because one could be coming to the Portland area. The burger chain recently bought a 71,000 square foot piece of property in Gresham on Northeast Sandy Boulevard. The property is part of a larger industrial and warehouse development called Portland Portal 3. And just a couple months ago, you may recall, In-N-Out opened a restaurant in Ridgefield. That was the first In-N-Out in the state of Washington. Now, here's a look at your weather.
From Portland, yes, we've had some rain on this Friday. I'm meteorologist Rod Hill. We're watching this big upper level low spinning offshore, and it's important to note for our area that when these lows sit offshore and you get the rain movement coming inland, especially all the way down into Northern California, like today, and then basically moving straight south to north, up the valley and up the Cascades, that's a flow pattern that's unstable for us and can lead to thunderstorms. We've had some thunderstorms already this morning down in southern Oregon. Yesterday afternoon, we had some spotty storms in parts of the Willamette Valley, and at the time, the Weather Service was saying those storms had the potential for pea-sized hail and 40-mile-per-hour winds. So any lightning detected today we'll kind of look at for the same risk factor. This low will weaken and push inland tomorrow, and as that happens early tomorrow morning, that will end the threat of any thunderstorms here on the west side of our state. So I'll show you our Futurecast movie for today, and so far this has been pretty accurate. It's shown most of our rain on the east side of I-5 and far less rain on the west side. Here's 10 o'clock this morning, so that's been true. It does show more of a scattered pattern coming up from the south at 6 p.m. And I wanted to point out, up in parts of southwest Washington, what we call our Salmon Creek area, it could be a thunderstorm even at 10 o'clock tonight, and there's some heavier showers down around Eugene. So again, the thunderstorm threat is in our forecast through this evening. Now overnight tonight, that storm chance ends. And as I play this tomorrow, instead of rain coming up from the south, you're going to notice the rain coming in from the west. So that's more stability. That ends the thunderstorm threat. And tomorrow, like today, will be a mix of some dry time and some wet time with rain areas kind of coming and going. Sunday looks to be a different animal. Now, this is Sunday morning, 8 o'clock. So mid-morning, the rain pushes in from the northwest. Here we are at noon. Here we are at 5 o'clock. what you just saw would be widespread steady rain in our region, Salem, Portland, Vancouver, and much of the coast during the day Sunday. I don't think there's a storm chance, but these brighter colors means there could be some heavier rain mixed in. And haven't really talked about this much yet this fall, but the purple tones here, that's snow that the model's picking up over the Cascades. Our snow level looks to at least be down to 5,000 feet and maybe 4,500 feet at times Sunday. So if that's the case, some of our higher passes could be impacted. Willamette, Santiam, Government Camp, which is the pass on Mount Hood, I would assume would just be wet. But if you're traveling over the Cascades here in Oregon this weekend, best just to check the updated weather forecast and the temperatures up there. TripCheck.com has all of those past conditions and temperatures for you. All right, how much rain are we looking at? Well, this shows what it's been consistently showing, and that is about 1/2 inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch in some spots. Coast and valley, over an inch in the Cascades, and some decent rain amounts scattered out across the east as well. This is our gorge, the Oregon Veterans Home camera out in the Dalles. Been a dry morning, not much of any wind, but we are expecting some rain to pass north through the gorge later today. Lincoln City, our Schnookways Casino Resort camera, the coast has a scattered shower threat, but could end up being one of our drier locations. You can see the raindrops this morning up on Mount Hood. And again, we talked about the snow level falling over the weekends, 30s up there right now. Our state capital, we've had some rain in Salem. We've had some early morning rain in Portland as well. Valley forecast numbers, 60 would be the highest mark we could hit, I think, with rain at times, possible thunderstorms. South winds pretty light unless we get some spotty thunderstorms, and wind gusts would pick up. Similar numbers up into southwest Washington. We have some 70s out across far eastern Oregon later today, where it should be mainly dry until you get a late day scattered shower threat. Portland 7-day. We talked about the weekend rain, still some Monday showers. Dry weather returns on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Starting at 12:01 a.m. Monday, October 13th, the Broadway Bridge will close to all cars, trucks, buses, and the Portland streetcar for 6 months. The closure is part of a $28 million bridge deck replacement project, swapping out the surface you drive on across the lift span. Crews will remove and replace the deck in small sections to keep the bridge balanced and able to open for river traffic. Speaking of traffic, expect a ripple effect across Portland's downtown bridges. The Broadway Bridge typically carries about 19,000 vehicles per day. As those drivers detour, expect commutes to be extra packed on the Fremont and Steel bridges especially. Monday's morning commute will be the first big test. Of course, the Rose Quarter Place hosted dozens of concerts, shows, and sporting events at the Coliseum and Moda Center. The first test there comes Monday night with the Renee Rapp concert. While vehicles will be a no-go, the south sidewalk will stay open most of the time for people walking, biking, or using mobility devices. Meanwhile, for the few thousand riders that board the Portland streetcar on either side of the bridge, the streetcar will detour over Tillicum Crossing, combining the A and B loops into one continuous route through downtown and the Central East Side. TriMet's Line 17 will also detour over the Steel Bridge. If all goes well, the Broadway Bridge is scheduled to reopen on April 11th.
Chris McGinnis there with that traffic report. And that's a wrap on your weekly recap. I'm Christine Petawanich. You can catch the latest anytime on KGW.com, your KGW app, or our YouTube channel.